The sound of laughter echoed from behind the bedroom door, but it wasn't meant for me. I stood frozen in the hallway of my ex-wife's house, holding the birthday gift my daughter hadn't asked for. She was 15 now, old enough, apparently, to decide that I no longer existed. Since the divorce, Emma had barely said a word to me. No calls, no texts, just silence thick enough to drown in. I'd driven 3 hours just to drop off this present, hoping maybe, just maybe, she'd come to the door. She didn't. Her mother had, wearing that tight smile that never quite reached her eyes. I turned to leave, then remembered the photo in my jacket pocket. I sat in my car, parked just across the street from the house I once called home, the gift still in the passenger seat untouched. A soft drizzle had begun to fall, the kind that blurs everything behind the windshield, just like my memories of Emma's childhood, once vivid, now distant and fogged over by silence. Divorce, they said, is hardest on the kids. But no one tells you how hard it is to be erased by your own child. I remember when Emma was 5 and insisted on calling me Super Dad, after I fixed her broken toy horse with duct tape and glue. Now she wouldn't even say my name. I didn't blame her. Not entirely. The divorce hadn't been clean. Sarah, my ex-wife, and I had spent years pretending things were fine until one day they weren't. The fight started small, forgotten chores, missed dinners, late nights at the office. But over time, resentment built like plaque on teeth, invisible at first, then impossible to ignore. By the time we split, the love was gone, and only bitterness remained. And Emma, poor Emma, had picked a side. Not with cruelty, just quiet, steady distance. Her loyalty had gone with a parent who tucked her in every night, while I had been too busy drawing up architectural plans in the garage. I gripped the steering wheel and glanced at the photo still peeking out of my jacket pocket. It wasn't much, just a printed snapshot from years ago, a candid one I'd kept in my wallet since the day it was taken. In it, Emma sat on my shoulders during a camping trip, her little fingers tangled in my hair, both of us laughing at something Sarah had said. It was the last family trip we ever took before things fell apart. I hadn't shown this picture to anyone in years. But today, when I was packing the gift, something told me to bring it. The rain grew heavier. I should have driven away. But I couldn't. Instead, I got out of the car, walked back up the path, and knocked again. No one answered this time. Maybe they were in the kitchen. Maybe Sarah had told Emma not to come to the door again. Or maybe they just didn't care. I was about to turn back when I saw movement at the upstairs window. Just a shadow, but unmistakably hers. I raised my hand slowly, holding the photograph up so she could see. For a moment, nothing. Then the curtain shifted slightly. A second later, the front door opened just an inch. Emma stood there in her sweatshirt, arms crossed, eyes wary. "What do you want?" Her voice was flatter than I remembered, clipped and defensive, but it was something. It was more than I'd heard from her in months. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I just wanted to give you this." She looked at the wrapped package in my hand, then at the rain beginning to soak my shoulders. "You could have mailed it." "I know," I said. "But I also brought this." I offered her the photo. She didn't take it, just stared at it. Then finally, after what felt like an eternity, she reached for it with a hand that trembled slightly. "I remember this," she said quietly, her eyes still fixed on the image. "You were 8. That was at Redwood Lake. We roasted marshmallows until we were sick." Her lips twitched, like a smile wanted to form but didn't know how. "You made that stupid song about squirrels stealing your granola. I still think they planned it." That earned a real smile, small but genuine, and my heart caught in my throat. "I didn't leave you," I said before I could stop myself. "I left your mother. But I never wanted to leave you." Her face darkened again. "Then why didn't you fight for me?" The question hit me like a punch. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The truth was complicated. We'd agreed on shared custody at first, but as time passed and Emma began pulling away, I didn't push hard enough. I was scared. Scared of making things worse. Scared that forcing myself into her life would only make her resent me more. I thought giving you space was the right thing, I said finally. But I think now that it was just the easy thing. Emma looked down at the photo again. Mom said you moved on. I dated. I tried. But I never moved on from you. She didn't say anything for a while. The rain continued to fall. Then, softly, she asked, "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of being a ghost in your life," I said. "Because you're turning 16 soon, and I'm missing everything. Because I found this photo today and realized that somewhere in there, we were happy, and maybe we can be again. Not the same, but something real." She studied me like she was trying to figure out if I was telling the truth. Then she stepped back from the door. "I'm not promising anything," she said. "But you can come in for 5 minutes." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And after all this time, that was more than I'd hoped for. The warmth inside the house felt alien after the cold drizzle outside, but what truly unsettled me was the silence. Emma walked ahead of me, not saying a word, and I followed like a guest who wasn't quite sure if he'd been invited or accidentally let in. The living room was nearly the same, save for a few changes: new curtains, a different rug, the smell of lavender candles instead of Sarah's usual vanilla. Emma sat on the edge of the couch, photo still in hand, her fingers running across it like she was tracing something she'd lost. I sat opposite her, unsure if I should speak first. The ticking clock on the wall echoed louder than it should have. She finally broke the silence. "Do you still have that camping chair? The one with a broken leg you kept fixing with duct tape?" I blinked, then smiled. "Still in the garage. Pretty sure it's held together by hope and 20 rolls of tape at this point." She gave a small laugh, then looked down again. "I used to think it was magic, how you could fix anything." Her voice trembled slightly, and for a second, I saw my little girl again, the one who used to curl up in my lap with her stuffed rabbit and ask questions about the stars. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She was older now. Hurt. Hardened by years of absence. "I used to wait for you," she said quietly. "Even after you stopped calling every week. I thought maybe you were just busy. Then I thought maybe you were mad at me. Or Mom. Oh, I don't know." The lump in my throat made it hard to breathe. "Emma, I was never mad at you. Never. I was ashamed. I thought I'd failed you. And every time I thought about calling, I'd convince myself you didn't want to hear from me." "That's the thing," she said, her voice rising. "You never asked. You just decided." There it was, the truth I'd avoided for years, spoken not with rage, but raw honesty. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, struggling to hold her gaze. "You're right," I admitted. "I gave up too easily. I thought if I pushed, it would just make everything worse. So I stayed away. I told myself I was respecting your space, but really, I was protecting myself." Emma's eyes were glassy now. She blinked quickly, but one tear slipped down her cheek. "It wasn't just you leaving Mom, you know. It was you leaving me." I swallowed hard, guilt crashing down like a tidal wave. "I know. And I'll carry that the rest of my life." She shook her head slowly. "You don't get to just walk back in and expect everything to be okay." "I don't," I said. "I'm not here expecting forgiveness. I'm here because I finally realized that staying away hurt more than trying and failing. That one photo reminded me of what we had before things went wrong. I came because I wanted to tell you that I still love you. That I never stopped." There was a long silence. Emma's gaze dropped to the photo again, then to the gift I had left on the table. "What's in there?" she asked softly. "Open it." She hesitated, then reached for the wrapped package. Slowly, she peeled back the paper. Inside was a small wooden box with carvings on the lid, tiny stars, moons, and little constellations. Her name was etched across the top. "You made this?" she asked, running her fingers across the wood. "I started it when you were 10. I meant to give it to you for your 12th birthday, but by then, things had changed. I finished it last month. Didn't even know if I'd ever get the chance to hand it to you." She opened the box. Inside were dozens of tiny keepsakes, movie tickets from our first father-daughter date, a smooth rock she had painted on that camping trip, a friendship bracelet she once made for me, even a folded-up note in her handwriting. I love you, Daddy. Always. Her breath caught. You kept all this. Every single piece. Emma closed the box gently and wiped her eyes. Then she looked at me, not with anger or distance, but with something much deeper, a grief that had long needed acknowledgement. I missed you, she said quietly. For a long time, I hated you for not trying harder. But I also missed you every single day. I leaned back, my chest tight with emotion. Can we start again? She hesitated, then nodded. Maybe, but slowly. I'm still angry, still confused. But if you're willing to try, so am I. The air between us shifted, not completely cleared, but no longer choked by silence. For the first time in years, we were in the same room, feeling the same thing. The weight of lost time, and the fragile hope of something new. She stood up, walked over to me, and did something I hadn't dared to dream of. She hugged me. It wasn't long or dramatic. Just her arms around my shoulders, her head against mine, both of us trembling, not with sadness, but with something that felt like healing. The next morning, I woke up on the old living room couch, a blanket draped over me. Emma must have done that sometime during the night. The light filtering through the windows was soft and golden, the kind of morning that felt like the world had paused just long enough to let you breathe. For the first time in years, my breath felt steady, not laced with regret or anxiety. But I knew this wasn't the end of the story, just a beginning that still had its share of complications. I sat up, stretching slowly, unsure if I should go or wait. Before I could decide, Emma walked in holding 2 mugs of coffee. One had a chip near the rim. I remembered that mug. She used to use it for hot chocolate, the one with little cartoon ducks. She handed it to me silently, then sat down beside me, not too close, but not distant either. We sat like that for a while, sipping quietly. The silence was no longer uncomfortable. It felt full, like it carried meaning instead of pain. So, she finally said, what now? It was the question I had feared the most. Not because I didn't want to answer it, but because I didn't want to give her false hope. I looked down at the coffee, then back at her. I don't know, I said honestly. I want to be here. I want to be part of your life again. But only if you want that too. She nodded slowly. I do. But it's going to take time. This isn't a movie where everything gets fixed overnight. I smiled, grateful for her maturity, grateful, but also saddened by how quickly she had been forced to grow up. I'm okay with that. I don't want a perfect ending. I just want a real one. She looked over at the wooden box still sitting on the table. I went through it again last night after you fell asleep. That bracelet I made you? I barely remember making it. But you kept it. I kept everything, I said softly. I didn't have much of you in those years. But the little I had, it meant everything. Her eyes watered again, but she blinked them clear. Why didn't you fight harder? For custody? For visitation? Anything? I took a deep breath. Your mom and I, things ended badly. Lawyers got involved. She was angry. I was lost. I thought keeping my distance was what everyone wanted. But I see now that I was wrong. I let the fear of rejection stop me. I let my shame control me. Emma nodded, processing. I think Mom tried her best. But she never really talked about you. She'd just change the subject, or tell me to focus on school. I don't blame her, I said. We both made mistakes. But I should have been stronger, for you. There was a pause. She sipped her coffee. I'm still figuring out who I am, you know. College is hard. I've got friends, classes, this part-time job that barely covers rent. Some days I feel like I'm drowning. I reached out instinctively, my hand hovering for a second before gently resting on hers. You don't have to go through it alone anymore. She didn't pull away. That's the thing, Dad. I've learned how to survive without you. But I don't want to keep doing that if there's a better way. I nodded. I want to earn that chance. Step by step. No pressure. No expectations. Just time. Conversations. Dinners. Maybe. A few awkward hugs. She chuckled. Yeah, that hug last night? Kind of weird, but nice. We both laughed, and that laughter felt like a door opening. Later that day, we went for a walk. Nothing dramatic, just around the block. The drizzle had stopped, and everything looked cleaner, like the rain had washed away more than just the dust. She showed me the cafe she sometimes studied at, the bookstore she loved, and the mural on the side of an old brick building that reminded her of her childhood drawings. As we walked, we talked about everything and nothing. Music she liked, a professor she hated, how she once tried sushi and immediately regretted it. I listened, really listened, not to respond, not to fix, but just to hear her voice. When we got back to her apartment, she surprised me. Do you have plans tomorrow? I shook my head. I was thinking, maybe you could come back in the evening? I could cook. Well, try to cook. You remember how I used to burn toast? I smiled. I remember everything. She grinned. Okay, tomorrow then. As I left her apartment, the hallway felt different. Not empty, not echoing with what was lost, but buzzing with something new, possibility. The photo that had brought me back still sat in my jacket pocket, folded and creased, but more valuable now than ever. Because it was no longer just a memory, it had become a bridge. Back in my car, I sat for a moment, breathing in deeply. The falling rain had stopped for good now. Sunlight broke through the clouds, timid but real. I started the engine, not knowing what the future held, but feeling, for the first time in years, that maybe I belonged somewhere again. Maybe this wasn't a perfect story, but it was ours. And it wasn't over yet. Weeks have passed since that evening, and while not everything has magically repaired itself, something essential has begun to shift between us. Emma and I still have awkward silences, moments when the weight of the past creeps in, but now, there's a shared willingness to sit with that discomfort, to not run from it. She's invited me over a few more times. Once, I brought an old pasta recipe I used to cook when she was little. She laughed when I fumbled the sauce, but we ate it together anyway, smiling through the mess. We even started sending each other random texts, sometimes just a song recommendation, a funny meme, or a photo of something mundane that somehow matters when it's shared. The gap of years between us doesn't feel like a chasm anymore. It feels like a trail we're retracing together, one quiet moment at a time. That photo, the one I'd kept all those years, is now framed and sitting on her bookshelf. She told me she put it there not to remember what we lost, but to remind herself of what we still have time to rebuild. I stood there looking at it, heart full, eyes wet, and realized something vital. Forgiveness doesn't come all at once. It grows. It heals in layers. And sometimes, it begins with just a single image, a moment frozen in time that dares to say, this love still matters. I may never reclaim the years I lost with my daughter, but I found something just as precious, the chance to know her now, not just as the child I once held in my arms, but as the remarkable woman she's become. And for that, I am endlessly grateful.